What happens when passion, resilience, and purpose collide in high-performance tennis? That's exactly what you'll feel in this episode with Coach Beti Sekulovski on the Coaching Podcast. She's a respected tour coach, former coach of Grand Slam finalist Jamie Foulis, former WTA tour coach and 5-year coach with Tennis Australia. She's worked with players like Storm Sanders, Ellen Perez, and Arina Rodionova, and now channels her experience into developing athletes and building her legacy through the Athletes Pavilion.
Hello and welcome to the Coaching Podcast, coaching for success in sport and business. Your host is Emma Doyle, the energy and high performance under pressure coach who is a world leader in unleashing human potential. Buckle up for this high octane session. Let them have it, coach.
This season of the Coaching Podcast is brought to you by SAM, the AI tool built for the coaching world. If you're a coach, SAM takes the stress out of marketing so you can spend more time doing what you love, coaching. And if you're looking for a coach, think of SAM as a matchmaking service without the romance, helping you find the right coach at the right time. Discover how simple it can be at trysam.ai. G'day everybody and welcome to the Coaching Podcast. Today's a very special moment in my life. I've been wanting to get Beti Sekulovski, Coach Beti, on the show for ages and ages. And I don't know, Beti, but sometimes there's a great quote about timing, and you don't have to see the whole staircase. You just have to take that first step. And with you and I over the years, from a mentor-mentee relationship to watching you grow in your own world as a coach, as an amazing human. I love that quote as it relates to our relationship because it's kind of a journey over time. So welcome to the show. And what are your thoughts on that quote?
Well, I wouldn't expect anything less from you because you have been someone that has been part of my life for such a long period of time in so many different phases. And quite often people ask me, talk me through your journey as a tennis coach. And very often your name gets dropped in there because it's the one memory I have that has actually shaped how I was coaching. And you're the first coach to really make me reflect on engagement in coaching. So I am very grateful for the friendship, but also just the many different ways you've helped me in my coaching journey and off the court.
Oh, thanks for that, mate. I appreciate that. It's always quite humbling to accept the gratitude too, isn't it? That's our default pattern to go, oh, it's not about me. But it's a journey over time, like relationships. It's give and take, isn't it? There's always I've got a lot out of our relationship as well and our journey. So you've brought up this word, Beti, engagement.
Yes.
Engagement. It comes up a lot. I ran a workshop, ironically, at Royal South Yarra Tennis Club, and except this time I was in high heels, not my normal runners and a tracksuit. And it came up because there was a lot of chatter about how do you make someone engaged? Can you do it?
Well, it's a big question, isn't it? I mean, I can only relate to what I've experienced, and you can. I think it's trying to understand, isn't it? It's trying to understand who is your audience and understand through questioning and getting to understand what interests they have. And in our sport, as you know, in tennis anyway, in my world, it's really very difficult sometimes when you're coaching a bunch of kids that you're there to understand how everyone is, well, why they're there. But I know through my time with you, Em, and I keep bringing this up, and you can take this as a very humbling thing, but I remember being on a court with a whole bunch of kids who had zero interest in being there. And I was panicking, trying to figure out how will I get through the next hour of getting these kids to enjoy the sport, because that's what it's about, right? They walk away with something. And I remember you witnessing some of my sessions and you gave me some feedback. And I remember feeling a little threatened by that feedback because I was like, well, how do I take that? Am I a good coach? Am I a bad coach? You naturally go through that questioning process. And I remember taking on a couple of different ideas from you and making it about the game, and the game becoming a team activity and the team activity, developing the game-based approach, and all of a sudden the lesson was flowing better and they enjoyed playing more, and it wasn't so static and boring, and it really just got back to what do kids want. And for my world, I mean, that's what we're doing. We're coaching kids. We're very rarely in my world coaching adults, but it was interesting how just dropping to their level and taking on feedback and not feeling threatened by feedback, how I learned to hopefully, get inside the head of a young kid.
Yeah, well, let's get rid of the word hopefully. You definitely stepped into your greatness, because we have to be able to deliver feedback and we have to be able to take feedback. And feedback is often received as a negative, like, am I a good coach, am I a bad coach, which goes straight to identity. When I think there's a subtlety in there as well, Betty, when you say around feedback being, if you imagine it as a thing, right, that you're experimenting with, as you said, you took on parts of the feedback. Let me give this a go and see what works, and brought it back to who's in front of me. And back to my workshop at Royal South Yarra Tennis Club, I asked for permission with the group today to say, do you want to learn through play, or do you want to just go straight into the tool? And 50% of the room was yeah, and then 50% of the room like, oh, I don't want to do this fluffy balloon stuff. And it was the stuff that I used to do with kids, specifically sort of 2 to 5, right, where they had to keep a balloon in the air using different body parts. So you had to be aware if somebody used a hand, then use your elbow, as well as calling out words to be able to recite a coaching tool. Anyway, long story short, is you should have heard the laughter. You should have heard the teamwork. You should have heard them working together to work it out. The energy went from being, let's just get on with it, to, oh, this is really fun. And whether we're talking about kids or adults, Betty, I think when somebody is having fun, they are learning. So park that thought. Now, here's my question. Very long-winded way to get to a question, Betty. And here's the question. Let's go to elite sport. You coached on the tour for many years. Can you have fun and still get the job done?
Yeah, yes, you can, and you should be able to do that. And I think that is part of having the longevity of having a player last as long as you need to, really, on the tour. And you're seeing players as late as mid-30s, late 30s now, still competing at the highest level. And it's just due to, because different phases of your life and career, you go through the real seriousness, head down, butt up kind of mentality. And then you realize, hey, for me to have sustainability as an athlete week in, week out, I need to enjoy what I'm doing over a long period of a year. And it's finding, again, we go back to who's in front of you, what really gets them going in the mornings, what gets them going when they're having some difficulties and they're just not motivated anymore, and how do you keep it fresh? Because, as you know, that athlete is seeing you every single day in a lot of these cases, and how do you keep that fresh? How do you keep your day-to-day fresh? You're going to a different country, eating different foods, that's always exciting, but then it's the day-to-day grind of getting on the court and being around that environment. How do you find a way to keep those things exciting? And I think that's what I learned later on in my career. I think I had that, I guess, the definition of what it should look like. I thought it was, okay, get in there, do the hard work, just because I was like that as a person. So I thought, okay, well, this is what it has to look like at this level. But then, you quickly realize that the most successful teams are the ones that actually enjoy themselves off the court and find a good balance between on-court and off-court, and knowing when to laugh and knowing when to keep it light, when to make it heavy and make it a little more serious. And it's constantly adjusting that environment for yourself and the player. And I did learn that throughout the years, but there's so many cases where you see players aren't enjoying it and there's just nothing being absorbed, and results, differ. And the ones that seem to have the most longevity are the ones that are actually enjoying themselves.
Well, what a great pivot into the athlete's pavilion, because you're creating something really special here around exactly what we're talking about, which is the space to a pavilion, a gathering of like-minded people, a community where, well, tell us all about it. And I love the essence of the mentor-mentee side of what you're putting together as well. So tell us more about the Athletes Pavilion.
Yeah, it really originated from, I had a lot of injuries plaguing my career. It left me with a lot of identity questions. Who am I if I don't have a tennis racket in my hand, basically? And a few years ago, I was having some serious issues with my back. I'd had surgery, and then a couple of years later, it led to a lot of back spasms, and I was quite debilitated to the point where I actually couldn't get dressed in the mornings. My partner had to dress me. I couldn't turn in bed. I couldn't get up. I was hanging on to everything dear possible to get out of bed, and I was taking a lot of strong medication just to get through the day. I went to my osteo, and we started having a chat about my career, my life, a little bit of a legacy talk. It was an in-depth conversation, and he said, "Hey, I really see you being able to help people, pivot maybe from their careers and try and find their identity away from sport. You've dealt with it. You've dealt with having to come back from injuries and try and be resilient and persevere and I guess reinvent yourself." And I'd been sitting on that idea for a couple of years, and then this year I decided, hey, I think I'm ready. I think I'm ready to help and support athletes, past athletes, athletes from different sports. And what it comes down to is everyone is dealing with this. They just deal with it in silence. And some work it out a lot quicker due to their network of people around them and resourcing. And the majority are sitting there in silence, just trying to find a way through murky waters. And this page is really about getting people together to share their story, wherever they come from, where are they at, are they thriving, are there any things that they could provide on the page that could help someone that's going through that, the murky waters, as we call it? Is there anything, it could be one word that could completely inspire you and change your world. And I think at the moment, the page, I'm providing some resources around books that have helped me, getting people to write some articles, maybe about their journey. What is it left? What has tennis left for them? What is a sport? What has it given them? What moments have made them proud of themselves? Because it's very easy when you've had a career that's been plagued by injury to walk away and say, I'm not really proud about where I ended up. When you have everybody else around you say, well, you're such a success, you got to play in the Australian Open and you got to do this. And I know when I received those comments, the first thing I thought was, I'm actually a failure, because I didn't reach the echelons of the game where I wanted to see myself visually. And I had to stop and I had to quit my journey very early, and it made me very sad about that. And I went through a very big grieving process that I never dealt with properly. And it affected me a lot later in life. And, I got to this point where I'm now nearly 43 years of age. And over the last 3 years, I've had to completely shift where I'm going in my career and say, hey, my health is really important. So is my mental well-being. What can I do that can serve a bigger purpose now in my life? And this page is just really about getting those people together.
There's so much power in storytelling, isn't there? Well, thank you for sharing that. And you have had quite the story, and resiliency does come to mind when I think of you, Beti, and grit and the way that you keep showing up. Gosh, that's so important, isn't it? Just show up sometimes. And I love the word just. Did a big talk last year on the just do it. And the word just is very, very powerful. So just check it out if you are interested in learning more about it. I think it's something that's going to be very valuable, and you're not alone.
Yeah.
That's the key in that. So the art and science of coaching, Beti, what you've just shared is very much the artistic side of your story, your background for doing this. And love listening to you commentate during the Australian Open. Of course, you definitely bring the science, but you have the artistry of knowing the game, playing at a professional level yourself, coaching at the highest level, and at a beginner level, right? So it's sort of the gamut. So what, in terms of coaching, how much is artistry and how much is science?
It's a good question, isn't it? I mean, I think where sports going in general, there is a large reliance on stats, isn't there? I think that's come into play more and more as we've seen it. And look, commentating at the Australian Open, it's pretty remarkable. The stats make us all look really good because we get provided these incredible stats. But I do some of my own stats through Piranha Sports, and they're a great company who have been around for a long time. And I've been doing this for my own education, really understanding the trends of the game. And at the AO, of course, there was some interesting things that were popping up in the women's game, especially, the high percentage of points won on first serve now at the top end is just huge. You're having Rybakina and Sabalenka winning over 75% of first serves, points won, and second serve points won now is even, the top end, top 10 are really up above 50, closer to almost 55%. So it's quite a large number of second serve points won now. The quality of the serving has just gone up to a whole nother level. It's been impressive to watch. Where that science and the artistry meets really what we're talking about, coaching, meeting stats, I think it's about interpretation. Again, understanding who you're coaching, how will they interpret these numbers. Not every number is important to be discussing with your athlete. It's really understanding what are the fundamentals and the keys of that really predict a good performance for your player, and understanding their game style. And if you understand their game style, you really know which areas to look at that are important. But it was interesting. I also got to commentate the Australian Open Junior event, and there was a match that is still embedded in my mind because it was quite phenomenal. I watched a young girl in the second round of the AO Juniors, was trailing 1-5 in the third set, had hit 19 double faults for the match. Couldn't hit a serve in the court. Was really mentally struggling. It was a very hot day in Melbourne. It was close to being that 43-degree day. And all of a sudden, she just clicked and realised, hey, maybe I need to sort of start putting in a bit of a three-quarter pace serve. Let's get the serve in play. And all of a sudden, from the back of the court, confidence grew. She found a way. All of a sudden, the serve started going in. She's come back and won that match in 3 sets, and I have no idea how. Now, the last person to have done that, who'd hit, I think, I can't really put the number on it. I can't quite remember the stat, but Anna Kournikova back in the day had hit quite a large number of double faults and managed to win. But what stood out for me from a junior point of view is how you can still win and not put so much emphasis on that 0-4. We know that the 0-4 rally length has become such a big talking point, and we know how important it is. But I've done some deeper research into the 14 unders even, and internationally at some of the big prestigious events. And there's still a large number of points being won in the 5 to 8 and 9 plus rally lengths, just due to the fact that they don't quite have the physicality and the weaponry and the serve maturity yet to be able to really hit big first serves. And, there's some that can do it, but majority, it's just so important as coaches that we understand stats and that we're not just teaching reckless hitting from the back of the court. And I think that for me has really stood out through all the stats that I've been doing is understand the phases of development, understand the age in front of you, and also understand physical maturity and mental maturity. And you see it from the top end, and it's really impressive, but working your way back is even, it takes you on a bit of a journey, and an exciting one if you do the numbers right.
Yeah, I think what you're talking about too is a reminder for all of us. Sometimes I think we also focus just on weaknesses. The stats show, right, double faults, we've got to work on the serve. But even in the workplace, you do a performance review and maybe you're not great at your tone of communication. So you focus on the weakness rather than saying, right, what are you really good at? And what's the video footage or the stats on when you're playing to your strength? And how can we put you in a role that does that? And I think that is also something I see a lot of tennis coaches over the years focused a lot on each week trying to fix a weakness versus strengthening a strength. So what's your take on that?
I agree with you 100%. I think there needs to be more identity around what is the player doing well? How are they going to be at their best? We know younger players are always going to have some deficiencies and you work on that, but how much percentage of time are you actually working on that versus enhancing their confidence, enhancing their identity of how they're going to play, and working with them on that. I think guiding them through questioning and getting them to understand, hey, do you feel that this is a strength of yours? because they need to buy into it, don't they? At the end of the day, it's not just your influence or you bring it to light through stats. It's them believing it, and I think that's important. But I've done several things with players that I've worked with where I've packaged up, for example, all their best patterns of play and how they've gone about it. Win or lose, how have you created opportunities? What does it look like for you when you're doing, A, B, and C? And you attach a little bit of maybe their favorite tune to that clip, and all of a sudden there's a feeling of, hey, I'm liking this vibe, I'm loving the music, I'm loving seeing myself in this light. And it's a great way for a player. I've used it when, for example, a player is going through a real rough patch. They're just not, they're just not seeing themselves in the same confident light that they had in the past. And it's just a way to boost that confidence and say, yep, I remember playing like this. It's almost a visual. It's some sort of almost visualization, let's say.
Yeah, I even like it's emotional rehearsal, because it's triggering the emotion when they see it, and it's them, it's not of somebody else. And it's so powerful. If you can see it, you can believe it, right? It's all good and well saying, I believe in you and you can do it. But when somebody actually sees himself doing it, actually, I use the word but then. That was an unforced error, my listeners. And not working on even every day is a school day. All right. So really great stuff. What about one more trend? What's one more trend that you saw during the Australian Open?
I think there's a lot of talk around this, but it's the variation that's starting to enter more into the game. Men have started, obviously, there's a lot more slice being used. We're starting to see Yannick Sinner also introduce a drop shot, come forward a lot more. In the women's, we're starting to see that a little bit more as well. Again, we look at the top end, you're starting to see, well, Sabalenka really kicked this off, I felt, last year, was the drop shot and the ability to come forward behind bigger ground strokes. And we are seeing more players develop this aspect of their game, particularly younger players. I got to sort of meet through text, really, was Eva Jovic's second, well, it's almost like a hitting partner, second assistant coach, really, to her team. Got to watch a lot of her matches and commentate one of them. And when I spoke to the coaching staff and said, hey, what is it that she's been working on? That's what she's been working on, is her ability to come forward at the right moments, use some variety, just because the game is becoming so big from the back of the court now. You need another level of X factor on the court, and you're starting to see more and more players utilize that, the forefront of the court and the softer skills. So I think for me, that's the real major trend that's starting to occur.
And no matter what level you're coaching at, use the statistics to help guide the future, right? But they're not the be all and end all. Correct me if I'm wrong. That's what I sort of took from what you just said.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, there's stats that are showing, hey, points won were 60% of the time. Well, how much was that? Was that 1 out of however many, or was that 2 out of however many? Understanding how often that was happening and just using that constructively. But again, it's just remembering that players, and you know this, Emma, better than anyone else, being able to engage in any sort of verbal communication. You can't have this lengthy conversation. It's about finding out what is important, how do they best take on information, and not trying to overwhelm them, because they're already overwhelmed when they're competing under stress. There's so much going on. Keeping things simple, keeping a process-minded layout. And you're starting to see a lot more players now with a journal on the court, which is something that I saw a lot of in the juniors and at the highest level. You're starting to see more players carry a journal. So I'm not sure if you've seen that, but you'd be pretty impressed with that.
I'm a big fan, better out than in. Share it, don't wear it. And you've only got the 90 seconds between games to give 1 or 2 cue words. I think sometimes we think the coach is giving this masterful information in tennis on the change of ends, and it's quite often not. It's 1 or 2 reminders of everything that's happening. So back to identity for a minute. As I said, I really enjoy listening to you. What do you see as your commentary identity, Beti?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's funny how commentary even came about, because I never thought I would even enter into commentary. But a good friend, Nicole Pratt, actually said, hey, I reckon you may be good at this. And I had a trial with Todd Woodbridge, actually, and Todd was amazing, and got into it and really fell in love with it. And what I think, look, I'm quite analytical. I see things. I love breaking things down. I love problem solving. It's part of just my makeup. And I find that bringing the stats to life with what I'm actually analysing for me has been where I see my strengths and bring the passion. I'm so passionate about the game that I think it's not work for me sitting there and commentating a tennis match. It is such a joy to sit there with fellow commentators watching tennis from the beautiful commentary booth that we get to sit in and watch tennis from, but also bring those two strengths to life for me, have really enhanced my identity and realize more and more, hey, these are the two things that are me. And it's been great to see them come to life.
Yeah. Onwards and upwards, Beti. Onwards and upwards. That's awesome. All right. In 1 to a maximum of 3 words, what do you think makes a great coach?
Definitely passion, communication, and, well, interest. I mean, having care for, I think not only your role, but for the person that is in front of you. You've got a big responsibility. And I think having that care, you can't do a good job if you don't care. So I think that'd be my top 3.
What do you think is one of the greatest life lessons that tennis has taught you that coaches out there, whether they're in the workplace or in the sporting arena, could really benefit from? What has sport taught you? What do you know to be true for sure, Beti?
Good question. I would say that it's something, look, for me, it's been growth, is seeing my journey as growth, not a failure. And I think when you start to see things as growth, you're more open to learning and more open to possibilities that are outside what you ever thought was possible. And I think I can only speak for myself, but I thought that I would be living on a tennis court for the rest of my life, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I wanted to challenge that thought, and unfortunately that was almost taken out of my hands slightly with injury. But I wanted to know that I was capable of a little bit more, and how can I spread that support further outside the tennis court and reach more people. So I think it's having that growth mindset, but also understanding that there's possibilities outside of what you think you're capable of.
Yeah, it's always been mindful to pivot and adapt where you can. And I guess the other thing that I did recently, just, want to give a shout out to Jamie Foulis, who you and I have both had involvement with over the years. And definitely you more than me on court and over time. I just sort of plotted her ranking over time. And tennis, sometimes we think, it's always going this way. The other life lesson that comes to mind is just the graph. If you map it out, same with shout out to Joe Sirianni, played up until I guess mid 30s, late 30s, and his if you map his ranking over the years, there's lots of highs and lows. Not easy to ride those. Hence the athletes pavilion again. So yeah, what would you say there? What's one of the ways to help support people? A practical coaching tool, or something people could to add to their own life belt?
I think you just got to understand and accept that it's part of what you're signing up for. I think the minute you start signing up for the trajectory to be on this constant incline is the day that you sign up for failure in itself. And you need the losses. You need the losses. And I've seen a lot of juniors, especially, have a very successful junior career, and you really count back the amount of wins versus losses ratio, and it's almost too high to the point where it's a little bit of a red flag, because you win so much. That's great for your confidence, but you actually never learn how to manage the losses and manage what is the reality of the sport as you get higher up you start playing higher caliber of players. You're going to lose a lot, and you've got to learn how to use that as an improvement tool. You've also got to understand that you've got to be excited for that, because it shows up in so many different ways. It's showing up for you, leaving you with all the clues to improve. And I think it's accepting that before you sign up for anything, you have to accept that is part of what it is. That's the journey that you're on. And I know for me, it comes down to also who is surrounding you in your team and educating you on that, because there's so often players that are traveling on their own, and this, and they don't quite have anyone to bounce some of that wisdom off. But it's so important who's your coach's role, your parents' role. You might have a psych involved or whatnot. You could have a very good friend involved, but someone has to help you bring that to life a little and get you to understand that perspective, because we all go through it as athletes. There's not one athlete that's ever had that trajectory.
And I think the workplace is very similar. I see it time and time again. What we're talking about here, if you're a workplace coach and you're thinking, what's this got to do with me? Everything. So thank you for that. All right. We finish with our rapid rally. So I'll start the sentence and you'll finish it.
Okay.
But it's been an honor and a pleasure, Beti, just talking about trends and all the great work you're doing to pass on legacy and purpose greater than yourself. You're living truth that tennis is simply a vehicle for life. So thank you for that. All right. Are you ready for the rapid rally, Beti?
All right, I'm ready.
All right, here we go.
Questions ready to go.
Yeah, we're changing state, everybody. I know you can't see us, but we've both got in the zone.
I'm ready.
Here we go. Notice when.
I smile.
So good. So you have a very infectious, contagious smile. You have a great smile.
Thank you.
I wonder if.
People notice.
That's funny. I'm going to leave that in. You have to be self-aware as a coach. All right. The final one is your journey will be
An open book.
an open book. You heard it here on the coaching podcast. Beti, shout out to all our people as well. Sarah Stone doing some great work, and she's been a big part of our life. And thanks, Pratty. And of course, even just a shout out to young Dahlia Scadoni, who the best thing about, I guess, our relationship too is that we can both have impact on players. And it's not coaching's not about ego. It's not, this is my player. Yeah. It's about how do we work together to support people. And she's on the college tennis journey with our coaching podcast sponsor, of course, transitioncoachforathletes.com. So, Beti, just on that note, adore you. Keep doing what you're doing. You are just an awesome human, and everyone, please check out the show notes to learn more about Beti, Coach Beti.
Lots of love to you, and thank you again for having me on your podcast. And it's always a pleasure to just watch your journey and follow what you do. You're a great inspiration for so many. So keep up the great work you're doing.
Yeah, and do you want to give a shout out to your podcast, Beti?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm doing a few, but at the moment I'm doing the Junior Journey podcast with Michael Lagazzo for the First Serve, and that's just all things junior tennis, covered from international to obviously in Australia, and it's a great podcast. We've had incredible guests, and Sarah Stone and I will be starting up our podcast that we started during COVID again, down the line. TV podcast, and very much looking forward to getting Sarah back on board with that and just seeing and just really bouncing off her energy again. I've missed her.
Yeah. And of course, you can hear Beti on radio as well. She's commentating there. You've definitely got the radio voice and the TV smile. So go for it, Beti. Keep being an amazing version of yourself with passion, fantastic energetic communication and care. Take care, everybody, and thanks for listening.
The Coaching Podcast is sponsored by Transition Coach for Athletes, a global coaching, mentoring, and US college sporting scholarship placement service. The service helps athletes navigate the often challenging world of choosing your best college fit while maximizing sports performance. Visit www.transitioncoachforathletes.com.